All right. Hello, everybody. This week we're going to look at Chapter 9 about application administration. Last week we talked about Linux administration, so getting things running on the system. But we didn't see anything about the applications that we want to have on the system. And so that's going to be the topic of this week. Despite having an extra week, I found myself still a little bit behind schedule, so bear with me with my kind of incomplete slides. We'll try to fill gaps as they arise, and maybe just go to drop into the terminal and muck around. All right. Um, yeah, learning objectives I didn't get to start, but basically it's kind of a little bit that. It's like so, what I just said at the outset is last week we talked about how to get the system up and going. So add users, give the right permissions to different users, so that they can do necessary things on the system. This week deals with installing an application, configuring it, setting it up as a service, and there are a few little things about R and Python specifically. So. I don't know that those are objectives so much, but it's really just like how to install applications, um, where to install them, maybe a little bit, how to configure them, and how to set them up as services. I guess those are kind of the notional learning objectives. So first, how do you install? Sorry, I should have gotten slide transitions in this one because it's a bit overwhelming visually. So the first little bit is like how do you uh, install apps. And I think there are really two paths that I see. Maybe there are others, but I'm fairly new to Linux, so these are the ones that I know and the book talked about. The first, and I think this is kind of the royal path, is using a package manager. So if you have an operating system, Debian or something Debian based or something Red Hat based, um, and the same with, other things like Rocky Linux and things like that. You're going to have a package manager. So you're just going to have some application that comes pre-installed within the system that allows you to install other applications from the kind of curated package repository that that operating system, that distribution of Linux makes available to you. Oops, sorry. And so here I'm going to use Debian commands instead of Fedora or Red Hat commands, but the idea is translate. Um, so if you're using a package manager, kind of the first thing a package manager that's on your system, the first thing you need to do, at least with Debian, I'm not sure if this is also true with Fedora. I've not yet dipped my toes into the Red Hat waters. But is you have to update your package index. So on your system, I think there's like a source list file that's in Etsy, I believe, that basically gives, to my understanding, a path to where all of the packages that exist in the repository can be found. So I guess it's probably like IP addresses or something like that. And obviously that thing can grow stale over time. So as new packages pop into the repository, some packages get deprecated, names change, etc. Or just storage locations change. So the first thing you want to do is you want to update that list, and so you have sudo apt update, and that'll update that list on your system, so that in subsequent steps, your system knows where to download the things that you're asking it to install. Sorry, I said download, so I guess download and install. Next step is you want to find your package in the package repository. I always find myself having to Google this, but perhaps I've just not done it often enough. It seems like you've got like the one I use more often is like apt. I think it's apt cache search, and then there's apt search, which I saw in the CRAN R documentation. I'm not sure what difference there is. Maybe apt cache is working off of a cache rather than also fetching the list. I'm not sure. But here, like if you're trying to download R, and this is kind of what I've set up, I stole the syntax from the example on CRAN, is you want to search for something and you can provide a keyword, or in this case, like a regex pattern. So R, just as it's hard to find R jobs, so not like, well, maybe in this economy, to find a job where you need R or anything is hard, but to find R jobs like is hard because the software is a single letter. And there are lots of things that match. And so the problem here too is that you're going to find lots of stuff. If you're wanting to install R from your friendly package repository, let's say on Ubuntu, then you could search like this because you want to have R base and R dev, right? So you're just looking for something that starts with R, has a hyphen, and then some stuff after it. And the sorting, I guess it puts it in alphabetical order. I'm not sure exactly the reason for this, but it so happens that the thing you want appears at the top of the list, is what I saw. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Um, this is like a super basic question. I'm a
Which means I
Windows.
won't be able to answer it
Well,
because I'm not at that
maybe
level
you
yet.
can. Maybe you can. And no pressure if not, just a curiosity thing. Windows is what I'm familiar with. You download an executable, a .exe, and
Yep.
you run it. You like instead of updating and getting software through like sudo apt-get update or install or whatever, like
Yep.
why this approach as opposed to like download executable, run executable? Is that something inherent in how Linux is different than Windows?
So you can do that too.
Okay.
I think the reason not to do it is maybe a couple fold. Like number one is security concerns that the things that are on the package repository are things that they're on yeah, like a package repository are things that have been vetted and curated. So they actually end up being really stale versions of the software in some cases, but they've been verified to work on a particular distribution. Um, I'm not sure if they undergo a security review as well, but I often hear kind of Linux users saying it's more secure um, uh, because you're not just going to some random URL, you're downloading from
Mhm.
a package repository. So it's kind of like downloading from CRAN. That
Okay.
being said, I imagine that there are probably also problems that can arise, like there was a PyPL. There are a lot of what do they call it, typo squatting, where people will put malicious software. Um, uh, will host malicious software there that is almost the name of a package you're trying to install, but there's a slight typo. I don't know if the same exists on for Linux package repositories. But in any event, like it's supposed to be more secure, I guess. And then the second reason is you can do it from the command line, which is often a lot more convenient than having to go and in your web browser find the site, download the thing, click through all the ads and download the thing. It's just maybe more convenient to go through the command line. That's my understanding, Josh. Maybe there's more to it than that, but I think
That's totally like a
that's it.
satisfactory response. I learned something there. So,
But I
um,
mean, Windows actually has stuff too. Like there's a package manager, I think it's called Choco. And then I think they have their version of like WinGet on Windows. I've not used either. Probably among other reasons because my IT department may not allow me to do that. Definitely not Choco because you have to install that. But there's
okay.
some like native I think WinGet thing that's available on Windows, to my understanding. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Good question. Good question. Yeah, and so like once
But
you've found your package, then you can install it.
can
Oh,
I
sorry. I
add
think
something?
Diana.
Oh yeah, go
So,
ahead.
yeah, sir, can I add something? Maybe it also has to do with like not leaving the responsibility to the user
Mm,
entirely. Because if they will just provide executables. Like there are tons of flavors of Linux, and there are multiple package managers. So the I guess the probability that you will download something that is not gonna work for you and for your operating system, it's really big. So if you use the package manager, then you're at least you're making sure that you're installing software that is gonna run in your machine.
yeah,
But
that's
I
that's
I
a
don't know.
that's a great point. I didn't think about. Yeah, exactly. That's an excellent point. Um, that at least it's known to work on your system, on your distribution, because yeah, which is kind of a big thing.
Yeah, and I just wanted to share. I don't know if you know about Flatpak. It's a
Yep.
yeah, like they're trying to I don't know integrate the use of multiple applications into one single point of entry for the entire Linux ecosystem. And I think it's been working well, and it's getting bigger. So
Yeah, no, that's a great mention too. I mean, I guess there are other efforts around that too. Like, so I think like generically the idea is that you download a thing and it's sort of like a sandbox container that has all of the system, all of the requirements for that application. So they're kind of like they're available to the application, but then they don't contaminate the system. So, but let's say you have something that you install that requires version whatever of R. I'm just making up something. And then you have some other thing you install that requires a different version of R. You can't have both things at the same time. And so then you find yourself, I guess, in what people call a dependency hell. It's like, well, and so like flat packs are an effort. I think probably right now the most popular effort so far as I understand to kind of resolve that problem in the sense like you download this application and and it contains all of its own dependencies. It ends up being kind of a big thing, but at least it solves this big problem. There are others as app image, and then Canonical are trying to promote snap packs. It's kind of the same idea, just different implementations, but it seems like Flatpak is the current is the current favorite from what little I understand from YouTube videos about Linux. Um, yeah. Although I've not used Flatpak for any data science things. Have you, Diana? No?
no, I haven't. Just like to install, I don't know, GIMP and Slack and those. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
those are that's good.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And then so anyway, you can install. And so Flatpak has, I've not used it in a very long time, but I think basically Flatpak has its own like system, its own like package manager in a certain sense. I guess it's something like Flatpak install, and then you do the same thing as you do here. So it's another thing, and you're pulling from, was it FlatHub? So I think there's a repository of Flatpaks, and then you can look on that and see kind of some meta information about whether it's an official Flatpak, like a community generated Flatpak, which version of the software it has, et cetera, et cetera. And then, maybe some metadata too about is it good, is it not good, does it work, does it not work? Um, but then like you end up having to, if you want to run it, I mean, I guess you could always do aliases on your system, but if you want to run it, usually they're weird names for the packages. They have these kind of weird prefixes that I guess probably are meant to avoid like name spacing problems. Yeah, but anyway, that's a bit of a rabbit hole. And so like the other option here is like I don't know if this is the right term, but this is what I use as side loading. So basically, like, as you're saying, Josh, like just downloading from the internet, that's completely possible too. In fact, I don't think this is necessarily the preferred method, but if you go to posit uh, co, I think you can find uh, Linux. Da, 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 da. I probably should have queued this up first. Uh, let's say you wanted to do RStudio. Yeah, I'll just do RStudio server. That they have binaries that are available for all of your operating systems. So let's say you're working on Ubuntu or Debian, then you could download those packages directly from them. And so here, and this kind of elides into the next point, is like you could just use curl or winget or something like that and just download the thing from this URL. So they've got a version that's for a certain version of Ubuntu, and for a certain version it's a deb package. So it's like Debian's equivalent of an exe, as I understand it. Um, and so this here is just stripped actually from Posit.doc's website here. If you wanted to target, let's say, a certain version of R, you could create a variable in Bash, and then that would enable you to like construct the address that you want. And then you could kind of get your system architecture. So if you're, uh, you know, uh, like AMD 64 or whatever else and get the proper deb package. And then once it's installed, then you run this. Although I was a bit confused, and maybe Diana, you know better since you seem like you're the far more experienced person among us three, is for installing Debian packages, I was a little surprised it's like sudo apt-get install. This is what I saw from the POSIT docs. I thought you would have to use Gedi, Gedi, to install a Debian package that's on your system. And maybe they're equivalent. Maybe there's some cases where you do one thing or another. I guess this could be one of those cases where it's both the beauty and the horror of Linux is that there are tons of different ways to do something, and there may not, in some use cases, there may not be any like practical difference between the two. But anyway, there's some command, like
So,
long story short, is
sorry,
there's some
so
command
you
for
said
installing.
sudo, or how is the other one?
Yeah, sorry, I
Sudo.
wish I'd made this bigger. It's like sudo apt-get install, which is kind of weird because I thought this would pull from the repository, but then they have the address. Actually, let me just open in the docs here. Um,
But the other option that you mentioned,
is Gedi.
GDI.
Yeah, so
I haven't used that one. Also,
oh,
yeah, I think
okay.
now.
Maybe I don't even
Oh,
have it on my system. I thought or maybe it's something like that, but there's something for something I've used in the past. I was trying to reproduce a bug. I remember that for and I was installing Quarto on WSL. I thought it was Gedi. The book mentions it. Let me see if just to close the loop, if I can quickly find that in the book.
and actually now, you use only apt and not get.
Okay, that was another one of my questions.
No.
Yeah, I was like not sure whether which is better, apt or apt get. I remember that like one was an early one and the other one improves, but maybe there's also things that one does that the other doesn't do.
Yeah, apt-get is kind of the old one, and now it's just apt or
I
apt.
was I was I was one letter off. It's GDEBI or what I
Oh,
so this
so
is I guess for installing Debian packages as
yes,
I understand it.
yes, yeah, yeah, you're right, and also like I don't think I think people like on the internet usually use that one when when you're installing a package, like when you have the .deb file.
Yep.
You use the GDBI, and
Yeah.
if you're like downloaded it and just like installing it from the repo, you will use the apt or apt-get.
Yeah, so I was kind of surprised here when in the POSIT docs they're using sudo apt-get install, and then it's pointing to the file on the device. I guess it can be
Mhm.
done. I'd never seen it before.
I thought you needed like an extra option or something like minus F or
Yeah,
something.
maybe there's a, I
Yeah,
mean, I guess this works. I've not
yeah, I
tried
guess
it.
that works.
I didn't want to mess with my system, but
Mhm.
yeah, maybe after the session I'll try it and see if it
Yeah.
works. So yeah, so that's for downloading packages. Configuring the application. Um, I think there are lots of there's more words in the book than this, but I think really it kind of boils down to if you want to configure the application, there's no getting around reading the docs because the docs will kind of tell you what configuration options are possible, which file the application is looking for, where it's expecting to find it, the different flags that are possible, and sometimes they're almost pseudo languages that you can have for this thing. So I just threw up an example here. I was tinkering around with tmux, so this is like a terminal multiplexer, one of the kind of like I shouldn't say more modern, but let's say a spiritual successor or equivalent of GNU Screen. Um, that's pretty popular. There are many of these. But here, like if you wanted to configure this application, for example, I think this tmux, at least for in my case, I guess this is like someone using their own workstation. It's maybe not a multi-user setting. You just go to the home directory and then create a file called tmux.conf, and then edit the file. You can put some things in there that again you'd have to look at the docs to find. And I think it's kind of broadly similar for other applications that they will tell you their docs will tell you how to configure that application. For example, with R, I guess you could do things. You could have like R site was it R site profile and R profile for the user, or like global R environment file, things like that you could do. But that's specific to R. Needs to find it in a certain place, I think. I don't know. Do you have anything to add on that, Diana? This is kind of my TDL R for the configuration applications. I think it's so application dependent that it's really hard to say anything
Yeah.
general.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yes, I think it's very application dependent.
yeah. But once you got your, oh yeah, and sorry, this is a little bit of interlude that the author makes is like, well, the application files exist in several different places. Again, to know where they're going to put them, read the docs. Um, but it could be in lots of different places, again, depending on the application. Here, I've just copied flat out from the book. Yeah, it could be depending on so the software may be installed in different places, and bin and OPT, it's so on and so forth. Configuration files may often, but not always, be in Etsy. And then your log files could be in several places. These are probably the most common places, I think. But then there's also some other common places where you might find the configuration files. These are, I think, either you could find it in your home directory, like the tmux example, um, or I've increasingly seen this like as a subfolder, like .config in your home directory is another place that applications are starting to expect to find things, I think, or at least one of the possible locations. Right. Once you've got your application file, then you need to I can't read the app docs. This is becoming a drinking game here. And then use an editor that's on the server to edit that file. The two things that are typically pre-installed on most distros is Nano. Although I don't know that this is always and everywhere for either one of these, but Nano or VI or Vim, I think are the most common ones that you can find. And they look a little funky, but you got to get used to them, I guess. Both of them have their pros and cons, but let's say like yeah, let me just do my tmux configuration file. So I'm gonna do nano dot tmux. Yeah. And so then you have this terminal-based editor that opens up. I think the author said that one thing you have to know that's not immediately obvious, well, like what's nice about Nano is that you at least have the commands that appear at the bottom, so you know what to do. But the caret is not actually the little caret symbol, but instead it's a command on Mac or control on Windows. So if I want to exit, I got to do control X and then I can exit. If you want hard mode, although I use Vim motions now in VS Code, so I've become accustomed to this stuff, but it's definitely hard when you start as you open Vim and you wonder, what on earth do I do? There's a whole internet meme about exiting Vim that you just restart your computer to exit Vim. But I mean, once you kind of get things down, it's not so bad to do. So like right now actually it's not really showing, but I'm in what Vim calls normal mode. So if I press J, I can do JK, HL to kind of move around kind of one character at a time. I can jump down lines. I can jump down two lines to J. I can traverse words. I can press W to go to the next word, the next word, the next word, etc. There are lots of things you could do. Again, read the docs, or better yet, there's I think there's some little game that I started learning. Is I think it's something like Vim Barbarians or something like that. That's a little gamified thing that teaches you some of the basic Vim motions. But the really important one is once you've made your changes, you want to press Control, and then here you can issue like commands. And so the most common thing would be like if you just want to quit, Q to get out, or better yet, if you want to save your changes, WQ for write quit, and then you can exit. So, right. Well, this did not work out at all. Um, yeah, so the next thing is once you've got an application going, it's probably going to emit logs. And so there are a couple problems that then appears. Like first, where do you find them? Next, how do you read them? And then how do you find useful stuff in them? So for finding them, this is just a repeat of what the author said and appears more clearly here. There's some common locations for log files, although you may have different locations for log files. Read the docs, you'll figure out where, or in these days, search or ask ChatGPT or your favorite friendly LLM, and they'll point you to where logs will be saved. Once you've got them, then there are a couple basic uh, I think these are core utils, right? GNU core util commands that will allow you to print them out. So cat will just print out the whole log at once, which could be useful if it's a short log. If logs are longer, then there may be a few other commands that might be better for you. So less, which I think is more modern version of more, but the less prints out just a few, I think it's maybe 20 lines, a few lines at a time, and then you can page through the lines. So you can page through your maybe not page through, but you could kind of like gradually reveal or gradually print out the contents of your log file. Other things that might be really useful, and the last one I think is probably the most useful one, is you could just do the first few lines. So this is kind of like the R command, which drew inspiration, I guess, from this core utils command of head. It'll print out the first n number of lines from your file in the terminal, and then you can do tail to do the opposite. So typically, logs will append new lines to the very end of the file. So tail is particularly useful, so you can kind of see what's going on as it goes on. And if you want to follow a file and have it gradually print, then you can do this -f flag, which will kind of emit a line in your terminal as lines are added to the file. At least that's my understanding. I've never used these. Well, I've never used that command. I've used the other stuff just to inspect the contents of files, but not the others. Then there's the finding the needle in the haystack, or the needles in the haystack. Some applications are very verbose in what they log, and you need to have a strategy for finding what's useful to you in those logs. I think the two most common approaches that I've heard about, and maybe you guys have others, is grep. So basically, what grep will do, just kind of like with R, or I guess it probably exists in Python too, is it'll filter lines. It'll only show you lines, only in this case, only print lines, let's say, so you could chain these together, like cat this out, and then like grep, so like filter the lines that match a certain regex pattern. So maybe you're looking for warning or error or something like that, then you could use grep to find those things. An alternative, which is I feel like I could be wrong about this, but I think it does much of what grep does and then additional things is awk. And I think helpfully and unhelpfully, awk, I think, has its own programming language. Um, so it allows you to filter lines that meet certain conditions. So they can even be kind of like numerical conditions. You can say like, well, this this value is above a certain other value. And then you can also show you can select you can basically say like if logs are, let's like each line has a set of let's say, columns that are comma separated or space separated, you can tell awk about the separator, and you could show only certain columns. So in that way, you could reduce a lot of the noise and just kind of print out to the console only those things that are of interest to you. Or you could even like redirect with both these, like redirect the outputs of this from like standard out to a file that you could consult later, right? So reading logs, first, know where to find them. Then second, have some commands for reading them, but probably for lots of things you may want to do some searches. And hopefully hopefully for all of us when we find ourselves in this situation, hopefully these are logs that we understand. Maybe they're also logs that we have created in our application, so we know where to find the important stuff. Right. This is the author is saying the other part of kind of setting up the application is making sure that you're running the right commands. So one, I think, canonical example is Python. So for most Linux distributions, at least that I've laid hands on, Python comes pre-installed. R, no, but Python, yes. And so if you're trying to deploy an application, let's say that uses Python, and you've installed your own version of Python, if you're executing Python, you may wonder, which Python am I using? Is it the the kind of pre-canned like distro version of Python? Is it the one that I I installed or something else? And so hopefully like maybe you can know immediately because you've installed it in a certain place, like which Python, or you can kind of find out with this command which. So if you do which and then the name of the application, it'll print out in the terminal the location of that application, right? So let's say I do Python 3, and maybe it picks up that I'm using the Python 3 that I have installed on my system instead of maybe the Python that I've installed elsewhere. To run an application, so this is my understanding, but this understanding may be wrong or incomplete. But basically, if you want to run an application on your system, you've got two options. Number one is you can specify the exact path, so like small p path, to where the binary is found, and you can run the application that way. So there you could run it from any point on the system. You just point to let's say the absolute path of the binary. Or you can just type like, let's say Python for 3, for example, and then it'll be executed, and your system will look at what is on path. So there's a system generated variable called path, uppercase path, that basically is a store of all the locations that your system looks in order to find applications. So it comes with a certain set of those by default. And I think my understanding too is that it goes through that that list of directories in sequence, and then it's kind of like lazily just takes the first one that's set. So like let's say a Python, and Python exists in 3 of the 4 directories that are on path. It'll just take the first one that it finds, right? So order matters here. So if you want to take your application that you've installed for your project, maybe a version of Python that's different than what's on your system, one that's specific for a project and you've installed in a special place, you can append it to path. So there are 2 options that the author discusses. So number one is you can append it to path. And actually, I should say you prepend to path. So since order matters here, like you can within, let's say bash RC or something that gets executed as your system like spins up. I think there's another one that's .profile for, I'll come back to that because I have a question for the group. So let's say you just put in bash RC, and so bash RC gets run every time your system spins up. Then you can create a variable. You kind of re-export path. So path is already exported, but you re-export it and you redefine it. So it ends up being path as the system defines it, to which you prepend the path of your application so that your application is found first in the search order. Obviously that may not be that may be the best strategy in some cases if you just want to have an application that's different and that's the only thing that's on your server. But if you have, let's say a system that has one folder for each project, let's say it's like a dev machine, you have different folders for different projects, this is not going to work. So like whoever last prepended their path will kind of like their path will be the one that rules when you're executing the application, when that path, the path of the binary is resolved. Another strategy, which seems better, potentially, is instead what you can do is say, I'm not going to touch the path. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a symlink to my, I'm going to create a symlink. I actually got these from the posit docs, so let me just go here where it's a lot more, lot easier to see. So you can create a soft symlink to somewhere on path. So you can say, like, let's imagine I installed my R version here, right? In OPT, in opt or OPT. I don't know how you pronounce it, but let's imagine that I've downloaded R from somewhere. I've installed it here on my server. This is not within the search path. So what I can do is I can create a symlink to here, which is on the search path. And so basically the system will find the symlink and then it'll resolve the path back to this. So in that way you can be clever about you don't modify path like uppercase path, the path variable, and instead you drop symlinks that are on path, so that your application gets picked up as being on the search path. Yeah, this is one thing that I started to do. Oof, that is really bad. Yeah, so this is kind of the last part here where I kind of ran out of time. So if so Josh, you said you're a Windows user by work requirement, maybe more than choice. I'm in the same boat as you, but I think all of us have worked with, like it or not, worked with Windows quite often. And we have lots of like on Windows, you have things that are that start up when your system does. And those could be some applications you install. Let's say you install Spotify, and now Spotify wants to start up every time your system does. Well, with Linux, you can have that too, and the system that's responsible for the startup, or at least one of probably the most popular system for that, called an init system, is systemd. You're going to find it almost everywhere, I guess. I could be wrong about this, but I think it's at least it's on Ubuntu and all the mainline distros that I'm loosely familiar with. And so what you want to do is basically kind of create an entry that the system will take, and it'll start up the service. Yeah, let me just switch. Let me switch to my editor where you can actually read stuff. Sorry about that. And sorry, this little dock is in my way. Bam. Okay, there we are. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay, let me just pump up the size. So like step number one to create this thing as a service is you have to go in the Etsy folder. So like it starts with slash, that's kind of like the like root. Systemd system, and then create some file that'll bear the name of your application .service. So .service tells the systemd, I think that it's a service file. And then you need to populate the contents of that file. So I got this from Google as an example. So basically, I think the way I understand this, and I'm only starting to understand this, the book did not go into this detail. It was kind of left us to draw the rest of the owl, so to speak. But I think here you have some like metadata about the description of your application. This is probably just for you. Okay, not completely metadata. This is if your service needs other services to be up and running before it runs, you can declare those like dependencies. So let's say you want your network service to be up before you run your application. You can say run this after the network service is up. Then you're gonna have like you're gonna point to where your application lives. You're gonna have some rules about when to restart. Like, if you restart your system, does it restart? The users or user groups for which it's available, so on and so forth. Um, and these could be just regular commands. So for example, and I didn't get this far in the book, but if you wanted to do this with Docker, you could issue like Docker commands to basically to spin up your container as you start. Um, and like once you've like created the service file, the next thing you need to do is enable the service file. So um, there's this command systemctl, which I've always kind of understood in my mind as like system control, but probably it means something else. First you reload the system D is like looking for daemons. Then you would enable your service right here. So you daemon reload enable, and this is the name of my file right here. I guess presumably I'd have to be in the Etsy folder to point to it in that way. And then you'd start your service. And in that way you could basically have it so that whenever whenever the whenever your computer starts, then this thing will be running as a service, like a background service. Um, and that's about as far as I got the with this. The same is true for Docker, and maybe I'll just bring the book over once I've. Actually, they didn't say much here for Docker, but I guess it's the same. I think it's the same idea. So you'd have to have like a restart policy, and then what you would execute to start the container. So it's whatever the Docker run container. I'm not a Docker person yet, and so on and so forth. Then right. Sorry, just looking at the book now. Bring it over so I'm not the only one looking at it. Um, For R, which I know better, I'm not sure about Python. You've got obviously to install R. So this would be installing R from your package repository, although it's not this way, I think. It'd be, I think, R dash lowercase r dash base, and then R lowercase r dash dev if you need to compile stuff from source, I think. Um, so you need to install it, and then you need to install some R packages, but R packages may often have system dependencies, meaning like you need. Well, I guess these are great examples here. Is that if you're using like SF, for example, simple features, you need GDAL, I think. Um, or maybe for some database, something you need a Java runtime or something like that. Those things don't come pre-installed with the R packages that you would install in Linux. Instead, you'd have to install those things as additional system requirements. How do you know about those things? And the book doesn't get into, but and maybe here there are other ways of doing this, but the package, um, uh, yeah, probably this right here. System requirements. All right, I may not get it. Oh yeah, platform. So I think what you can do, yeah, you can name a. So it's been a while since I've used this, but I think you can name a. No, 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 that's not it. Here we are. This is it. So you can name a package or a list of packages. I think this takes a character vector. Package references. Yeah, so I guess it's a character. It doesn't say it explicitly, but I think it's a package vector. Or say a character vector. Um, and then you can specify the platform. I think it can actually be different than the platform that you're on. So, I'm on Windows and I can say what do I need on Ubuntu? And so then through that, you could get a list of all of the things that you need for a particular platform. Let me see if I can quickly do this. I think I've got an R terminal open. Yep. Come on. Bear with
I
me
didn't
here.
know. I didn't know about that function. It's like, yeah, it looks so useful because I
It's a
usually just
really
wait
useful
until it
function.
fails.
Yeah, exactly. That was my previous workflow is like try something and then it's going to fail and then try
Yeah.
again. That was and hold up this I should get Radiant on this. Let me do this and so let's do package equals, let's do SF, and I'm gonna have to look on the docs here. Actually, naturally, oh yeah. Come on. What are you doing, VS Code? Or okay, I'll just do this. Trying to figure out what I need here. System platform. Maybe it's just as simple as Ubuntu. Ubuntu. And then I'll execute that. And what's really useful about this is I think it not only, this is from memory, but I want to say maybe this is the Posit Package Manager. So I think Posit Package Manager allows you to do this too. I think it'll give you the list of packages. All right. I don't know why. Maybe I don't have pack installed. Another alternative here is I think I've gone to, is it Posit Package Manager? If I can spell correctly. And I think not only do they give you they'll actually give you the command that you need, which is really helpful. So let's do SF. And sorry, I've not done this in a while. Maybe this is what I need to do. Okay, Ubuntu, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, here we go. These are all the command are all the system requirements here, I think. I think. Or maybe not. In any event, you can find that. You can find it somewhere. I'm fumbling here right now, but yeah, there are a couple ways. I was wondering, like, actually, this is a question to you guys. Like, where do you figure out what you need? So, I think for me, I'd figure out that Pack does this, and I think recently when I was tinkering with container stuff, I saw that the Posit Package Manager gives you this stuff as well. Although I'm failing to see it right now. I guess this is it. Not super elegant because it's like one line of code for each package, but it does the thing, right? Oh yeah, there's GDAL. Um,
The
any
only,
any any better ways?
no, not really. The only experience I have is trying to get the system packages for SF and some other spatial R packages. I feel like at that time, LLMs weren't a thing. So I was on Stack Overflow and just like pulled what someone else
Yep.
and wrote and provided that to my IT team who was setting up the Linux server that we
Yep.
were using.
My workflow was even worse, Josh. I was starting out with us trying to do GitHub Actions, and I think what I did is I found there's this YouTube video that Eric Nance, the shiny guy,
Mhm.
art podcast guy, he did on using dev containers in R, and so he had the whole list of all the R dependencies, and I copied and pasted that. So I probably took more things than I needed, but this is pre-LLM
Yeah.
era, and yeah, it worked. And then I think I reverted to like what Diane and I were kind of both nodding about is then it's like, okay, it runs and fails, and like, okay, now what do I need? And then iteratively
Mhm.
add stuff until finally it stops complaining.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Um,
been my experience too.
yeah. The one thing about this chapter that I feel uncomfortable about, but this is probably only because of my lack of experience is this idea. So a lot of the discussion, as I understood it, was that you can have multiple versions of, let's say, R or Python installed, and you just install it on some place on the system. And then all of the work comes to making sure that for a given project or that you point to the application that you need for that project. Um, have you guys done that before? And if yes, does that, or even if not, I mean, does that feel like the right way? I'm slowly becoming a Nix user, and it just feels like Nix offers a better path that I'd happily like quickly show if you want. But that just feels really clunky. But maybe that's just the way it's done.
I don't have experience with that in R. Like I've always
Okay.
stayed with that single R version, and yeah, I update as soon as possible, and I try to keep all of my packages updated. I haven't used RM that much, and the time that I've used it, like it's I don't know, like it keeps giving errors, and you have to go back, and I didn't love it, but like with Python, yes, but using Conda, and
Oh,
and
okay.
Conda is like, yeah.
But this, I think we discussed this before. And is Conda, were you doing like a collaborative setup, or was it just you? Because I've
Mm,
heard some stories like Conda being really brittle when you're trying to share with others, but it's great for working solo.
yeah,
Not a
yeah, I
criticism. I'm
think
just trying to
yes.
accumulate anecdotes to figure out what to use when I try to learn
Mm,
Python.
well, yes, yeah, just for me, but also like installing, like yeah, recreating a entire environment from YAML file, and that worked well. Cause yeah, with Conda you have the entire Python installation in your environment, and like that's different from UV, because with UV you have the
No, I think
Python and
UV you can download Python as well, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you have to have a pre-existing Python, but
yeah,
or actually maybe that's not even true because I think UV might come in two flavors. I think one where it's a package, so it's under Python, and then another where it's a standalone command line utility. I could be mistaken on that, but I think I've used it recently and I was able to install like pin a version of Python. Um,
okay,
yeah, and so that becomes part of your environment. What UV doesn't do yet, at least to my knowledge, is go beyond the scope of Python. So I think that's where Conda is better in that you could do Quarto, you can do R, you can do lots of things. So it has this broader scope with system packages, to my understanding at least. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, Nix
yeah, but
has the same. Like I really have started to enjoy it. I've just been t tinkering with it on the side a little bit. So if I want to,
maybe we could have like an extra session with where
sure.
you could like yeah, where you could share about your experience with Nix, because I've never used it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not using pure Nix. I'm using a thing called Devbox. It's just kind of a like a nice wrapper. So you could do like a Devbox search, R, and then it tells you what all is available. And you could do all these versions. You could do like latest, or I could do I'll just pick an arbitrary one. Uh, Devbox. So now like this project. Oh, whoops, I messed up. I forgot the CD into my folder. Uh, um, Devops init, Devops add R at this version. And then it goes and fetches the stuff, and you can, I think all of CRAN is available there. You can also do stuff of GitHub, although it's, I've only kind of figured that out. You have to use another Nix thing called a flake to point to stuff on outside of the repository. But you can get like really current versions of stuff. It's supposedly bigger than the AUR for Arch users. And then you can you drop into the shell, the dev shell. Obviously, this takes a little while, and my computer is slower because I'm sharing screen. But basically, it kind of works through. Maybe I can open up another. Make this into like pseudo terminal multiplexer. Anyway, we're at time, but I can have like multiple versions of R on my computer, multiple versions of stuff, and it's like scoped to the project. Yeah. If we could rope Olivier back in, it would be. I would love to see. He being French, I think he likes GUIX because I think it's some French people behind GUIX that's like kind of similar. DevBox, I think is. I think it's a private company that's got it, and the Nix is open source. But both of them, I think, build off of Nix, the fundamental thing. Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to show something, but time is up, and this is pretty slow. The one warning is like you have to have a lot of storage space on your computer because then you end up installing multiple versions of things. And you can pin it down to like individual hash, like SHAs, like, individual hashes. I see you, Josh.
Bye.
Anyway, I'll do stop
Uh,
here.